Good afternoon and welcome to your On TV News Desk. I'm here in the studio today with Kelsey Dugas, a Saultite who has recently opened her own youth counseling clinic. Kelsey, how's it going today?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
So, you started the clinic in January 2018.
Yes.
And it's geared specifically towards youth, and primarily you specialize in LGBTQ
Yes.
youth.
Yeah.
Now, we were just talking before we went live. I mean, you're young.
Yeah.
This is a huge undertaking. Can you tell me a little bit about what led you to opening your own clinic?
Yeah, so really, I just started to think about this when I was in high school, and the more I furthered my education, I realized it was something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to help people, and luckily I had some good guidance to kind of put me on the right path to be able to do this.
And you went to school here in the Sault, took psych, and then went on to do your master's.
Yeah.
And then you decided to stay in the Sault to pursue this career. Do you see a gap in service, and that's why you wanted to stay in the Sault in this kind of field?
I feel that there is a gap in service, or maybe just a gap in communication in terms of the services we do have to offer in the Sault. So I wanted to make it very clear to our population, our community, what it was that I wanted to do and who I wanted to work with.
And what services, I read a little bit, you do individual, family, emotion-focused therapy, but can you tell me specifically some of the details about the work you do with LGBTQ youth?
Yeah, well, really what I'm there to be, in my opinion, is a support system for that individual who is going through a hard time. So it's really, it varies depending on who they are and what they need.
Right.
But yeah, it's typically the one-to-one support, just providing that safe environment for them to really express who they are and to work on strategies to help them be comfortable in, our community and our environments.
And do you think kind of opening up this, opening this clinic, I mean, it's servicing a gap that we have in the Sault, but also, we've talked a lot recently about the stigma surrounding mental health and around coming out and being, expressing yourself as LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
What role does your clinic play in all of that?
Well, I mean, it's really just creating that ability for the diversity in our community, right? So that's what I feel my clinic really does, and it helps support, kind of move that forward and help with everybody feeling comfortable with who they are in this community, so that they're not leaving the Sault to go find that somewhere else.
Because that's a huge thing we hear from youth. It's, I mean, in terms of the out-migration, and then you have to think in a community like Toronto where there's such a diverse, there's so much diversity and there's so much pride in being, not that there's not issues there as well, but there's a lot more pride in being, you know, gay, lesbian, whatever else. And it seems sometimes like we lack that here.
Yes, it does seem like that. And that's kind of why I made it the forefront of the practice. So, I mean, like you said, I work with youth with mental health as well, but it really is focusing on that population so they know that there's somewhere here to go and they don't have to leave our community to go elsewhere.
Right. And in terms of how you got started, we talked before a little bit about the role that the Economic Development Corporation played. Can you share a bit about the journey that you took with them and how they kind of helped to shape what you're doing?
Yeah, so they were very helpful. I had a lot of one-to-one support with the staff there, and they were able to really help me with my grant process. So that was really what took the longest, and a few months of work, honestly. So I was able to, sit down, talk to them, work on the grant with them, so that it was what it needed to be to get the funding to be able to open this clinic to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was through the millworks specifically?
Yeah.
And in terms of where you want to go with this, what do you think is next?
Well, really right now I'm just building and seeing what I can do and trying to get, my voice out there. So a lot of community outreach, talking to the high schools specifically is where I'm going next, in the school boards, because I feel like, sometimes there's a gap in where they send those children or knowing about those supports. So really just getting my voice out there to know that I am here and I'm here to be supportive.
And are you working with any other organizations, or is it kind of just, private, separate?
Right now it's just private, separate. I've had some good connections over the years that I'm going to continue to work with, but it is just a separate entity right now.
And what's your, through doing this work, and again, we talked before off camera about how sometimes this, the content that you're dealing with can sometimes be heavy. But what kind of keeps you going? What's your favorite part about working specifically with this group of people? And
honestly, it's seeing the change or seeing them open up. So a lot of these individuals have a hard time in their daily life just being who they are. So seeing a smile on their face when they're in that session, just knowing that, I'm not judging them and I'm not there to change who they are or to make them better in any way. I'm really there to help guide them down the path that they choose. and I feel their expressions and just, the communication that we have and the relationship we build is very important, and it's really truly what keeps me going.
Sounds rewarding.
It is.
So we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we'll be back in the studio with Kelsey Dugas to talk a little bit more about her clinic. Stay tuned. Welcome back to your On TV News Desk. Here I have Kelsey Dugas and it's called Kelsey Dugas Counseling,
Yep.
right? Easy enough to remember. So we talked a little bit about the role the Economic Development Corporation played in assisting you with this endeavor. We also talked a little bit about some of the services you offer. Now, I wanted to kind of ask you, because you took psychology.
Yes.
And then a master's in social work. So you didn't
Yeah.
take social work as your
No.
undergrad, specifically
Yeah.
psych. So did you know when you were taking psych that you wanted to end up in doing clinical social work eventually?
So I knew I wanted to do something clinical.
Right.
So it would just seem to be the best path at the time. And when I talked to my advisors, and I had a lot of professors at Algoma really guide me, and they really pointed me in the direction of social work because of the work I wanted to do. So at first I really thought I was going to keep going with psych. So I was happy when they showed me another pathway too.
Right.
Yeah.
And what led you to wanting to work specifically with LGBTQ youth and doing the work that you do on an individual basis?
Yeah, so really the reason why this is the populations at the forefront is because I can relate to them personally as well as professionally.
Right.
So when I was growing up, and I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, I didn't have these services that were really there for me.
Right.
And I didn't feel, they could have been there, but I didn't know about them.
And that's a huge issue too, is the communication of it, right?
Exactly. So I had no idea that there was any services out there for me. And it's a really hard journey for an adolescent to be out there by themselves and not really fully understand kind of why they're different, or understanding why others may look at them differently just based on their sexual orientation or gender identity.
So, and do you share that personal aspect with your clients?
I don't typically share a whole lot about myself with them in individual sessions, but I'm very honest and forthcoming about my sexual orientation, and I'm not afraid to discuss it if need be. So
it might make it a little easier for them to find that kind of connection with you, right?
I think so, yeah.
And in terms of being someone who's in the community, in terms of mental health and social services, where do you think we're at as a community in terms of really ending or reducing the stigma around mental health?
You know what? There's been a lot of progress over the past few years. I have to say, I'm really proud of our community and how we've come together, especially with mental health awareness. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. I just think that there's some more work to be done for sure in our community and other communities too.
Of course, it's not a Sioux-centric issue,
No,
but
absolutely not.
it is something that we face here.
Yeah.
Now, if people want to learn a little bit more about what you do, how you do it, or maybe get in touch to book something, what are the best ways for them to get in contact with you?
Definitely through the website that I have right now, and it is posted on multiple social media websites. But that's probably the best way because there is a direct link to email me right there, and then I'm able to respond to that, and then we can have a phone call. I do typically like to communicate over the phone before
meeting in person?
Before we have a session, yeah, just to make them more comfortable.
And do you have like a wait list right now, or is it pretty open if people need you? You're
no
pretty
wait list, no, pretty available right now, yeah.
Awesome. So if you want to get in touch with Kelsey to learn a little bit more about her services, and you do individual, you do family, emotion-focused, solution-focused, working with youth, or you also said you have older patients as well?
I do have some, I have some adults on my caseload as well right now.
So if you want to get in touch with Kelsey for any of your therapy needs, it's Kelsey Dugas Counseling, and the website is kelseydugascounseling.com.
KelseyDugas.com, yeah.
Perfect. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back with more news coming up after this.